Hello and welcome to another edition of CGI Unpacked, our podcast about CGI inspections. Today we're talking to Governor Richard Taylor from Hydebank Wood Secure College and Women's Prison, Marie O'Neill, Head of Learning from Belfast Metropolitan College, Sinead McKenna from the Education and Training Inspectorate, and Lead Inspector Maureen Earn, and myself, Jackie Durkin, Chief Inspector of Criminal Justice in Northern Ireland. So, we're doing 2 episodes on Hydebank Wood Secure College and Women's Prison Inspection. We're doing one about education and one about health because there are 2 prisons on one site and the issues around education and health are so important in a prison setting that we thought we'd do 2 episodes. So I hope you get the chance to listen to our edition on health as well. So I'm going to kick off. I'm going to ask you, Maureen, as a lead inspector, why do we look at Hydebank Wood Secure College and Women's Prison?
So as part of Criminal Justice Inspection's remit, we are one of 4 bodies in Northern Ireland that make up the National Preventive Mechanism, and that is designed to prevent ill treatment and torture and examine the treatment and conditions for people in custody. So we routinely inspect prisons in Northern Ireland as well as other places of detention. Hydebank Wood was last inspected back in 2019. So we generally inspect the prisons on a 3-year cycle, and we'll do follow-up reviews in between. So really it's to satisfy ourselves that of the treatment and conditions of people in custody.
And can you tell us a bit about who we inspect with when we're carrying out prison inspections?
Yeah, so the inspections are done in partnership with a range of organisations. So we partner with His Majesty Inspectorate of Prisons, with the Education Training Inspectorate, so Sinead will maybe say a bit more about that later, and with the Regulation and Quality Improvement Authority, who examine the healthcare provision. So it's a kind of blended team, and we've been working closely at the same kind of settled team over the last 4 years or so. So yes, it works really well. So obviously ETI and RQIA and HMIP, we work to the expectations, which are grounded in human rights and minimum European rules. And so we assess against that framework, although ETI and RQIA will also assess against their respective standards. But we bring all that together in terms of our deliberations and our considerations about, well, how well are people been treated within, in this case, in Hydebank Wood, and we reach our judgments then on that basis.
So Richard, as a governor that has all those inspectors on site, carrying out an inspection, can you tell us what it's like for you as a governor and for your staff to go through that inspection process?
Well, I think, Jackie, it's very challenging because I think we had probably just over 30 inspectors at one stage at Hydebank Wood, and not only for the inspection, but the lead up to the inspection. So there's normally a week from the first inspectors come until the full inspection takes place, and then gathering all of that evidence and all of the material. But the most important thing is keeping the core working day going for those people that live at Hydebank Wood, because their expectation are that certainly prisons, whether it's young males or whether it's females, work on a level of predictability. And we're very keen to keep that going and not let the inspection disrupt that. And of course for them to meet with the inspectorate teams from the different bodies and talk about how life is for them living at Hydebank Wood.
And maybe just add in there, Jackie, that I think that's something that we're very mindful of, particularly in a small site. So altogether, there was maybe around 95 women in custody at the time we inspected, and about half that number of young men. So we were very conscious that there were some landings that there might have been 1 or 2 individuals living on. So we have to be careful as an inspection team not to overwhelm people and recognise that that's a place, that's someone's home, that's, you know, their education, their healthcare setting. So we are very mindful of that as well. And just to pick up as well, I maybe should have mentioned too that Richard's right. You know, you have a week 1, and one of the key things that's done in week 1 is the prisoner survey. And I think that's so helpful to inspectors. So we will go in and we'll speak to a range of people during the full weekly inspection, but we have a sense of where people are at in terms of their safety and respect, their education and their resettlement needs. That's really important to us as well, to get that voice carried through.
So Richard, back to you and the fact that Hydebank College has become a college and changed its name. Can you tell us a bit about what the education aspects mean to you as a governor and what that means for the people who are living in Hydebank Wood?
Well, I think it's fair to say both Maria and I have been there from the start. So 2013, whenever we decided that we would push forward with the first secure college in the United Kingdom. And that translates into putting learning skills at the heart of all that we do. So from people are inducted, first of all, and committed into Hydebank Wood, seeing what their educational levels and attainment are, and then working with them to achieve, in some cases, the very basics of essential skills to those coming up who can go into level 2 and level 3 education. But most importantly is to have a core week where they have a say. We always believe that if you involve people in their own future, you gain their commitment. So everyone at Hydebank Wood's over 18, so it can't be compulsory. We can't force people into education. But we do have a waiting list to go into most of the classes, and our level of attendance rate at Hydebank Wood is the highest that it's ever been. Now that's a reflection, I think, of the curriculum and a reflection of the teachers and the way that the classes are conducted, that you have adults who, by and large, opted out of education pre-teen years, looking to go down and looking to take part in the educational classes. And our residential units, both male and female, every day would be sitting with probably around about single figures left in them. Those are people who are due to go to visits, or people who have court cases, or people who have healthcare needs.
And what does that mean for your staff, Richard? Does it mean, they would do their work in any particular way or different way because of the fact it's a secure college and women's prison?
It's a lot more relaxed. Certainly from 2013, I think the place has changed completely from what it had been then. Periods of unlock are probably the best that they have ever been. Certainly in my time in 2013, having went in after a very poor inspection, there was significant evidence to show that young men and women were spending inordinate periods of time locked behind doors without a core routine. Whereas we have a number of different phrases at Hydebank Wood. So a happy landing is an empty landing. So getting everyone out at 9:15 in the morning and getting them out into learning skills, vocational training, for them allows them to do something that's constructive. And to quote one of the young men who said of the changes that they experienced through the inspection was that they slept at night time now because they were doing something very constructive during the day.
Thanks, Sinead. I'm going to bring you into the conversation now. So in terms of the professionals looking at learning and skills and purposeful activity, can you tell us a bit about what you found at Hydebank Wood?
Really, it was a very positive experience for us as an inspection team, because we were able to see that most of the young men and the adults and the women were involved in purposeful activity, education, training and work activities. And very importantly, the relationships between the Northern Ireland Prison Service staff and the Belfast Met as the lead provider of education, training and purposeful activity were very good. And that meant that with the good dialogue, they were actually engaged in ensuring that the needs and interests of the prisoners were being met. And particularly at the time of the inspection, there were quite a number on remand, and it was important that they also received their entitlement. And both NIPS and the Belfast Met were working very purposefully together to ensure that they had that entitlement. And really, there was a challenge, as you say, Richard, with waiting lists, but that was being managed well. And we were making sure, really, when we were looking at the inspection activity, that were you able to provide, and you were looking, talking and having conversations about the core curriculum and actually what was it that we needed in terms of qualifications and what would meet the needs of those. So you did talk about literacy and numeracy, and there were numbers of prisoners involved in literacy and numeracy essential skills, and that was very important, but it also was the other qualifications. So one of the things that we found very important was the access to professional technical areas such as painting and decorating, not only for the young adult males, but also for the women. That was a very important qualification to see, and see that breaking down of gender stereotypes. And it means that there's opportunity for progression when they move on and out and through the gates. Also, we were able to see that there's been a lot of investment in terms of light vehicle maintenance and so on. So that's been very, very important. Those are qualifications and opportunities that will provide for opportunity when you go out through the gate. And it means that then you're actually equipping, as you said, a lot of them haven't had qualifications in the past. And it's an important opportunity when they're ready and willing and want to learn to be able to do so. We were able to find that at the time of the inspection, most were involved. So you did talk about, an empty landing is a happy landing. And it was very important that they actually were out and engaged And the relationships that we found when we were observing practice firsthand, we were able to see really positive relationships between the Belfast Met staff and the prisoners. They knew both the men and the women well. They knew their needs. They had established relationships. They were able to adapt, and they were able to respond. Perhaps somebody was having a difficult day for whatever reasons, and they were able to adapt and respond and work in partnership with their NIPS colleagues to actually address the need and say, what's happening on this given day? How do we actually deal with this? How do we adapt the learning? What do you need to do in terms of the day? And it was very, very important to us to see that that was working well. I think what is also important really, and I suppose when we engaged at the point of inspection, what's important for us is to have conversations with all staff and to understand the relationships between the staff who actually work together in Belfast Met and then their relationships with NIPS staff. So an important part of the inspection process is meeting and talking with the staff, talking about what it looks like, not just on the week of an inspection, but what it looks like over time. And as you've talked about, the changes that have come from 2013, and Maria, as the head of learning, has been there through the whole journey. So she has walked that walk. So very important for us is to understand, where are you at in terms of your action planning at the time of a given year and in a cycle, so that we're understanding that improvement is a journey.
So Maria, from your perspective then, and it's important to talk about, really valuable and positive partnerships. So what does that look like for you?
Well, it's been a long process. I started there as a teacher, and I've come into the role as head of learning 3 years ago. So I know what it's kind of like behind the door with the students. The most important part for us really is the collaborative working, and that has made the difference in everything that we've done. So the likes of the BT staff getting trained up by our tutors so that they can mentor up to level 2, level 3, and the tutors will come along behind and assess. I think that's really effective, and it's given the VT staff ownership of that area. It's making sure that everybody's on the same page. In the past, we would have maybe been vying for students a wee bit more, but now people are much more connected in what we're trying to achieve. So if we do have a student who's a painter and decorator 4 days of the week, painting and decorator, VT is more than happy to release and sit alongside his class. That they'll do the qualification 1 day a week. So that works really well for us. I think at a senior management level, Richard was very proactive in making sure that I was part of a lot of the decision making. I was invited 3 years ago when I first took this job to all the senior management team meetings, to any decisions that were being made throughout the prison, and I was able to communicate that back down through to my staff. So we were very much in the circle, as in, there was nobody working in silos outside of that, and that communication piece is so important, that I can communicate to my staff what is going on throughout the wider prison, because we are a small setting and there is an awful lot going on. So we do need to know what other areas are doing, and but it's worked really, really well for us. We have rehabilitation forums, we have student forums to give the students ownership of the area. We've just done a curriculum review just before the inspection came in, and we're making sure that what we're offering the students aligns with the employment gaps out in the real world, because we know that's the key to reducing reoffending and not seeing them come back. So that's really important for us to do that work, and we'll continue to do that work with the prison, and then we hand over to probation or whoever it needs to be, those other agencies. So it's just a massive, massive collaborative piece.
So for people that might not be as familiar with how it actually works in practice, can you say a little bit about how you design that curriculum for the males and females that are in Hydebank Wood?
Yeah, so we would have a core curriculum that we work against. So that's the likes of their maths, English, ICT. So we would hope against government guidelines that all adults are up to level 2 in those areas. Alongside that, then we would offer lots of different vocational training, and that has been through different exercises that have been performed by colleagues at Belfast Met and in the Donald House Justice Department, and they're looking at the gaps in the markets. They're speaking to people out in sectors and seeing what are the needs and where can we realistically get people into work. Then alongside that, on the ground, when people come into Hydebank, within the first 2 weeks, myself and the senior officer will speak to the individual and see what's their plan, what's their pathway while they're with us, how long they're going to be with us. We look at if they're on remand or if they're going to be sentenced, so we can plan the route for them. We quite like it when people come down and sit in front of us and say, I've always wanted to be a car mechanic, or I've always wanted to be a joiner, or whatever it happens to be. And then we can plan. So if they don't have their maths in English, we will build that in. And we say it's catering or hospitality. They can do all the short courses, which Nate mentioned, which is good for our Remand people who we don't know how long they're going to be there for. So it's harder to plan for those. And then we will build a journey for them. And hopefully by the end of it, they'll sit in front of our employability tutor in the last 3 months of their sentence. And they will produce a CV that could rival anybody on the outside. Because not only will they have the qualifications that they've gained with us, but they'll have the work experience that the prison have provided, whether that be painting the landings, whether it be working in the restaurant or the kitchens, and they'll have maybe 2-3 years experience on the job as well as qualifications. And we are very successful with employers, so it works really well. We just have to keep looking at the market and what's going on in the outside world and saying, like, this is where the need is. We also do bespoke things for our students, and we're lucky that we are small. So, for example, we have a couple of girls who are really interested in opening their own businesses. One of them wants to be a hairdresser. One of them wants to open a small coffee van. And we engage the likes of Lisbon Enterprise and get them in. So we can do ad hoc things, which is really nice.
People might have a perception that the males and females are in the classes at the same time together. So can you describe a bit about how that's organised and what challenges there are in organising that?
Yeah, at the minute we have females in the learning and skilled actual building. So that would be like the campus, the main college campus, and they're in on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday, and the males are in on a Tuesday and a Thursday. And it switches. So if the main females are in the main campus on a Monday, all the males are on the outside working parties. So that could be horticulture, light vehicle maintenance, joinery, recycling, and then the girls, actually, the hairdressing and beauty is up in the female part of the prison, so it can run Monday to Friday. So it's a really good setup. It works very well, and it gives that break from the classroom-based activities. So in learning skills, we have your essential skills, we have art, we have the catering qualifications, the theory, we have the barbering. So a lot of the theory work's done on the Tuesday and Thursday, and the boys are grateful that they can get out and do the actual practical work on a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. But no, they're never in the classes together at the same time. And I think that prison manage it really well. It is difficult having 2 different prisons on one site, but I think we make the absolute best.
I suppose we found at the point of inspection that there was a good management of that rotation of the males and females. It was well managed, and we would have a concern from the point of inspectorate. Is this equitable? Is there a provision for both the males and the females? Because there's a different number of population. And what we found that it was, there was well managed the rotation to ensure that they were both equally getting out and getting involved in the purposeful activity. So as you said, many of the things in terms of the work activities, Maria, we were able to see the animal husbandry, we were able to see the gardening, we were able to see that they were working in the cabin and so on, and the barbers, really purposeful activities for the young men and the women.
And they were so pleased with what they were doing, isn't it? Because I
There was
remember
pride.
you walking across one day, and did a couple of the guys come across and show you what they'd been doing in their
Yes,
class. So
absolutely,
it was just evident how many people were out and about, and they were
Proud of what they were
purposely engaged in activity and really pleased with themselves, which is fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. The grounds and the work that was going on, certainly when I was there, and Charlie Taylor, who's the chief inspector in HM, inspected the prisons, we were blown away by some of the work that was going on, and a lot of candid feedback from staff and from people who were there, prisoners that were there, were saying about how they enjoyed their day being filled with things to do. So I just kind of want to, finish off now with talking about concerns. And while we are so pleased that Hydebank Wood was able to achieve good against the 4 healthy prisons test, but in terms of there's always something that can be improved. So Sinead, do you want to say a little bit about that from an education perspective?
From an education perspective, I suppose, building on all the positives, as you have said, what's really important now is that the prison service and Belfast Met are well placed in terms of all the data that they are collating in terms of what the provision looks like in the now. But it's important to use that data and the learning from the provision and the journey, as you've said, Richard, that has come along since 2013 to say, how do we plan well for the future provision? How do we make the most of our resources? And how do we ensure that the curriculum remains relevant and actually purposeful for everybody, so that you as a staff working collaboratively together and with your other partners. I think that's really, really important. We did pick up at the time of the inspection, there's obviously the engagement with health, there is special educational needs and so on. And it's really important that the partnership working continues, making good use of data to be well informed about the curriculum for the future. There are good grounds there, and I think as well to acknowledge the celebration of, for instance, we noted White Ribbon. I think that is really important to note the work of White Ribbon in educating the young men about the implications of violence against women and girls. That was particularly notable and powerful. And then from an enrichment activity for the women, it was the idea of the choir and so on was very, very important. So that participation in those wider enrichment activities, and it's the conversations now going forward. What is our data telling us? Where are they voting with their feet? Where are they saying what their needs and interests are? And how do you keep that curriculum relevant?
So Richard and Maria, as inspectorates, we're really pleased to be able to give that assurance and be able to say, well done for everything that your teams are doing. But where do you go from here in terms of addressing those concerns?
I think for us, one of the strengths of Hydebank was the ability to adapt quickly. And we have saw a significant difference in the prison population coming in, those people coming in with significant neurodiverse issues, complex needs, a wide range of senior citizens coming in, which we haven't experienced before. And of course, to concentrate on the through the gate. So to answer your question, is the collaborative working is continuing, and in my opinion, is continuing to improve. I think the working relationship between everyone at Hydebank Wood is probably the highest it has been for some time. But it's not to lose sight of that or to get complacent, to see that small changes can have a big effect in terms of an operational environment. And it is for us to be on top of that, to keep those avenues of communication going.
Yeah, and I think for us in the education bit, it is taking that lead from the prison and working hand in hand. One area probably that we will develop further is we were lucky enough to get an in-house special educational needs coordinator who is with us 3 days a week, and I would like to grow that, and I would like to collect more specific data to be able to look at what's going to come through the door down the line, and we can see what's happening in schools and stuff with the amount of neurodiversity. It's just going to be a mirror to what happens to us, and we need to plan for that, and we will.
Well, thank you all for participating in the podcast today. And as I said earlier, there's another episode on health, which I hope you'll be able to listen to as well. So thank you, and thank you to your staff and all the work that they're doing in Hydebank Wood Secure College and Women's Prison.